Right now it is time for This Week in the Lakeville Journal. On the line, we know we have Cynthia Hauswinder. Cynthia, good morning.
Good morning. I've never heard anybody voluntarily eat Mary Jane's before.
Oh, my house, it was the big thing. And Janet, are you there?
Yes, good morning.
Yeah, Mary Jane's. It was an adult candy in our house, but my mother and father used to fight all the time because they would eat just so much of it. It was ridiculous. I don't know. When I was a kid, my grandmother was there. Give me some potato pancakes, stuffed cabbage. Not this Mary Jane stuff.
Yeah.
It would have been my ideal thing on Halloween to go out and get stuffed cabbage or stuffed peppers instead of candy.
I'm with you. Yeah, that's better.
Well, anyways, let us go to the front page of the Lakeville Journal, and there's lots of news to recap this week. We'll start off with the slow-rolling the COVID-19 clusters that are going not only through Region 1, but Hotchkiss in our area.
It's been, as Dr. Mark Kirko says in this article, we're having more infection now than we had in the first wave.
Yeah.
And they did predict that come November that there would be a second wave, and we're in it. And request to everybody, do wear your masks, do social distance. It's hard because we're all having what's called COVID fatigue. So we all feel like, we've been doing this, but, we're going to have to shut down for a few months, keep working remotely. But so we have... I think most upsetting is, a total of 17 cases at Gear Village where they've been so careful. And you can see how infectious it is. It really takes one person to spread it widely, and especially in our most endangered population as our elders. Nothing yet at Sharon Healthcare Center, nothing yet at Noble Horizons. This is in no way a black mark on Gear. They've been very, very careful.
No, all it takes is, and we speak to Mark Kirko every 2 weeks, and he's coming up again on Friday. Even we spoke to him last week. All it takes is, that's why the Sharon Hospital shut down all their entrances except for the one entrance. Just takes one little thing, and then everybody gets put at risk. And because it's a silent disease, it's really hard to track that way. So,
right, all of these cases came up because they were doing random
testing.
Yeah.
But because of symptoms, that's sometimes the only way you can find out.
Yeah, but
right. They were all asymptomatic.
Correct.
So it's just an interesting thing to watch. But the state now in the past 2 weeks has changed the way they report the numbers. The state of Connecticut twice, and they finally have hit upon a system which is more accurate, which tells you the current cases of COVID-19 in the town, and then there's a probable case, which means it might be
false or it might be not.
So finally, after 6.5 months, they've come up with a stat that's easy to read and easier to understand.
Yeah, I think they've had the probable cases for a while, but they do change the way that they report pretty frequently, and so you'll often see a note in there. And people should go to ct.gov. There's a portal that has information. I know everybody's very concerned about the numbers. Often you won't see some of these numbers coming up on the charts because the person who tests positive, the numbers reported in their hometown, not in the town. But in Falls Village, we've had 0 cases for the entire run of this pandemic.
Until now, you have one. That's right. And also, I keep telling people when we put the numbers up, the numbers are 12 to 36 hours old. They're not numbers from today. They might be from yesterday evening or yesterday morning.
Yeah, but they're up there pretty fast.
Yeah, but on the weekends they don't update them on Saturdays or Sundays.
Right.
So
the numbers you see Monday, they always put a red note. This is the number.
Yeah, but most people don't have that specificity, so they just hear things, and then you know how the old game of telephone goes. So
right. So it's interesting that all the schools are handling it slightly differently. So in North Canaan, they had 3 cases, and they said we're clear on who the contact is. They did not shut down. But at Sharon Center School, where there was a case in the middle school, all the middle schoolers are now doing remote learning until October 29th.
Which is next week.
Which is next week, so it's a total of 2 weeks. And then Karen Manning, the principal, also had come back with a positive test, so she is also quarantining.
And Hotchkiss had 7 tests. Then they immediately tested the entire population and found no other ones. But they are now going to up their test, and they're not going to do it. They're going to do it on a weekly basis with everybody. So,
and where people
we have a note on our website. Hotchkiss did contact us and say the 4 people who had tested positive subsequently tested negative, but will continue to be quarantined because that's the protocol.
Yeah, and it's just something that we're these bumps in the
have
roads.
to figure out.
These bumps in the roads we have to go on. So now, then you've got a story before we get to the kind of lockdowns in Salisbury. There'll be Halloween, but there'll be sort of Halloween.
Oh my God, this is the hardest story to put together. It made the election chart seem easy. All of the towns are being very cagey about it, and then they get very indignant if you get the information wrong. So I apologize now if any of this information is wrong. However, it looks like they're all being, except for Kent and Salisbury, which are actually closing down the centers of town, as is the tradition. I believe the rest of them are all just saying, well, we're going to do something, but we're not going to do the traditional. So I think North Canaan, I didn't get the sense that they're doing any particular activities. Sharon is not doing the costume contest, but there is trick-or-treating. However, many families may choose not to participate this year. If you're out trick-or-treating, either look for a bowl at the end of the driveway and do instruct your children not to take the entire bowl. I know it's hard for children sometimes to understand the concept of just take one, but it's a good moment to learn that. And there may be people with their porch light off, and if that's the case, that means that they're not participating this year.
All right, so it's interesting. A lot of the towns are already setting up for Christmas. I know North Canaan and Salisbury. People can call the fire departments and email the fire departments and set up a visit from Santa to houses.
Right.
So they're already
very brave of Santa.
They're already setting up alternatives to what we used to have around here for Christmas for this year.
Right, and so one request to readers from all of the towns is this: don't go to another town other than your own. If your town is not doing anything, then you're just not doing anything this year. Don't come from North Canaan to Salisbury. Salisbury is very nervous because it's such a magnet to other towns. Sharon is as well, often from people from across the state line. Special request: do not go to a town that your children don't live in.
And it wouldn't be a bad idea the day before Halloween to contact your town hall and just go over once again, if you want to, what the town expects of you, and leave it at that. So
I'm sure they'd love that, but it's not on. And so actually, what they should do is they should check at their school, because the town halls are not really sharing information. And keep in mind that many town halls are closed Friday. So what people should do is they should check at their school, because the school is the one that will definitely know.
But also, I know also on their web pages they have information on it as well. So if you're well versed at that. Now this is a weird story, kind of like a lockdown in slow motion and not lockdown. With what happened in Salisbury.
And this would have been the biggest story of the week, except so much happened this week.
It's pushed way back.
So last week, as we were going to press, there were, my neighborhood was people kept sort of texting me going, "There's all these police around here with dogs," and then we got a note from Lisa Carter, who's been phenomenal at sharing information, that the state police had recommended that Salisbury Central School be on soft lock. No, actually, it's from Stephanie Major, who's the principal, saying the schools have been put on soft lockdown during the day. Most of the kids didn't even realize that they were on lockdown. But then somebody had also said Noble Horizons, which is 2 miles away, was on lockdown, and then Salisbury School had apparently investigators and dogs on the campus. So there was a young man from Shelton who was arrested, and the police would not give any information on this until the young man was arrested, and it was closed in their opinion. But it's a young man who, of course, will go to trial, and that will be it will be determined then whether or not he was at fault. But it's believed that he was involved in a domestic incident and some other charges.
All right, and what would have been a larger story, if not for all the other stories, was the new transfer station opened.
Janet and I went. Did we go last weekend? Did I see you there on Saturday, Janet?
Yeah.
Very sociable there. Everybody knows her. I was impressed by how deep the hoppers are, so I guess that's a good thing for the employees. It means that they're not constantly having to empty out the hoppers. The single-stream recycling and the regular garbage are right next to each other. You park your car and then carry your bags over. It's not a very long distance, but there are shopping carts in the parking lot. So, A, please be careful when you let your shopping cart go so it doesn't hit somebody's car. But, B, you can then pile your garbage into the shopping cart so you don't have to pull up to the hopper, which is, A, dangerous because there are people standing in it much more than normal, but also there's now a $10 charge. And so please be nice to the transfer station attendants if they try to charge you.
All right. Now, as you open up your Lakeville Journal, folks, you're going to find on page A2, because there's so many letters to the editor, and they're also on their regular site And Janet, I have to bring you in here and comment. There was a post on Facebook that, and it's funny because I looked at the paper yesterday afternoon. Okay, I read it all the way through.
Thank you.
But there was a post on Facebook accusing the Lakeville Journal of changing headlines, making Democratic headlines on Democratic letters more noticeable than not. And I was flabbergasted simply because I don't see that. They're the same size headlines on everybody's letter.
Right, and it's an inexact science at this moment because we have so many letters, and I process them quickly. I'm the only one who does this, and so anyone who says they sent a letter and talked to somebody and it wasn't me, there was a misunderstanding. So. Sometimes I use the headlines that are sent with the letter. Sometimes people don't send headlines, and that's normal too. So the way that we do it, just so everybody knows, is that we take letters until 10 a.m. on Monday morning of the week of publication. I call or email everybody, contact everybody who writes. So if you haven't received a contact from me, you know I haven't received what you sent. And I then lay out the pages, and I have to say I pretty much did them in order of opinion, the two viewpoints, and then A2, and I did them pretty much in alphabetical order, a little of the letter writer and last name. And so the variation on that is if I had a little extra space to play with, and we had some short letters, which was very nice. Thank you to all those concise writers. And those would fit in various spaces. But, we are so grateful that our pages are seen as a place to share opinions and that our readers see that as important, and we get really good letters. So I will just say I hope everybody reads all these letters and really sees what their neighbors are thinking, and this is a good civil way to communicate.
Letters to the editor, and then your recap of the candidates for office. It's what a local community newspaper should do, and you do. So. And
I think we're going to run it again next week, depending on space.
Yeah.
So we want people to be able to cut it out and take it with them to the poll.
All right.
This one you don't even have to cut out. It's just a pull-out, and it has all the 64th District, 5th Congressional District, and 30th District candidates. So don't miss that pull-out sheet.
All right, we go on to the next page. Kent art dealer opens first Litchfield County storage facility for fine art.
Billy Morrison, who is such an interesting person, has a beautiful gallery downtown, has moved to a couple different spaces over the years, and is in temporary digs right now, had purchased, I think, what used to be the old Chevrolet car dealership in the middle of town, and has been building this kind of black box of a building, which is now open as an art storage facility. And anybody who knows art collectors, and there are a lot of them around here in our part of the world, knows that everybody has more art than they can display at any given time, incredibly. So Billy has opened up a storage facility, not only for collections, but, even if there's one precious piece of work that you'd like to preserve in proper conditions. And then he will now begin work on his new gallery space, which will be in front of the storage facility.
All right, you've got the hearing on the Falls Village Affordable Plan closed last week, and tonight the Planning and Zoning Commission is meeting in Falls Village, and they will probably vote. And what I found from an interview with Coulter Rule is they already have a petition signed by, I think, 70 or 80 people in Falls Village to bring this matter to a town meeting. So this is going to be a very interesting week and a half, 2 weeks in Falls Village.
So a very complicated planning and zoning issue going on, which is the Falls Village Housing Trust, newly created, is proposing a multi-unit dwelling right across from Coulter Rule's house, which is, Coulter's house is right on the river on a fairly small road. And a lot of concern about it, not only from the neighbors, but from other people in town. A lot of support for it because, of course, we all believe in affordable housing. We all want people to be able to live a decent, safe life in nice housing here. It's been a very emotional hearing, and as the Planning and Zoning Chairman and the Zoning Enforcement Officer keep saying, these hearings are just about whether these projects fit into the town zoning regulations. It's not a deeper question about whether housing should be allowed, who should be allowed to live in it, anything like that.
No, and that's why the petition for the town meeting will handle things like that if they get enough signatures and meet all the requirements.
How many do they need?
I forget. There's a percentage of whatever voted in the last election.
Cynthia, do you know?
No, it is a percentage of, only the town clerk knows the answer to that.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you've got the Clayway Studio Tour.
Right, which is great, and one of my favorite events of the year, and we did a nice preview on it in Compass, a lovely event, and do look online for their plans for next year.
Now, before we move on, we will now go. I will hop over to the opinion and editorial pages because in your editorial you give your endorsements for this election locally.
Right, as we do every year. Depending on what the elections are. Sometimes there are more local elections, sometimes more national and state elections. Of course, this is our national and state election year. So it's interesting because in those Facebook posts last night, one gentleman suggested we not do endorsements at all because then we wouldn't have such controversy. Well, then I guess maybe we shouldn't even have elections. What the heck? Who needs that? But many papers don't do endorsements anymore. We are independent, locally owned, believe strongly in good government and our commitment and our responsibility to covering government. And so we do endorsements, and we don't expect all our readers to agree with our endorsements. We don't even expect them to have their minds changed completely, as we say here. Most voters' minds by now are made up, and many actually have already voted, but they know where we stand. Our opinion pages are important to our readers, and we see them as a large part of our mission. So we believe that this presentation of who we think should be in office is thoughtful, and please give it a read. We're not attacking anybody except perhaps the guy at the top in Washington. But besides that, we only appreciate that we have people who make it them races on the state level and the federal level. So kudos to all those who run and are willing to serve their fellow citizens, and give it a read, see what you think, and by all means, write us a letter for next week, whether you agree or disagree. We are happy to have them, and we do our very best to get all of the letters in.
You have a letter also Zoom bombing the Hayes Town Hall. I don't know if you guys are aware of it. At a Zoom W.E.B. Du Bois meeting the other day, the exact same thing happened there, where somebody zoomed in and just hurled a bunch of racial epithets at, and once again, they've got the district attorney and the police looking into it because these type of things can be considered hate crimes.
Well, I feel they certainly should be considered hate crimes. I don't know how else you can see them. Certainly, they're racially targeted and just about as horrible as you can be. Anonymous. Really, this is the downside of online communication. Zoom is a great tool, but this kind of thing, and people have figured out how to do it. It just ruins communication, and it's a shame. I hope they find who did it.
All right, I hate to say it, but people say it, and it's true. It's just a sign of the times. Social media has taken the word tolerance totally out of interactions.
Well, and also the idea of communicating via screen is, it's time has come.
It doesn't take a strong person to bomb into a Zoom meeting and not be identified and do the idiotic things that they do. All right, let's go to the Compass. We've got some time left there because your Compass has quite a bit in it.
Quite a bit, but very quickly I'll say we've lost two beloved people from the community. Dave Lindsay, longtime Housatonic Valley Regional High School biology teacher, but also the track coach and the robotics coach, just a lovely, lovely guy. And Alan Berrien, a newer resident of the area who'd worked at Visionary Computer. Many of us knew him from there, but also many knew him from Trinity Lime Rock, and a very moving tribute to him from Trinity people. Tom Goldenberg has a show in Amsterdam, and Duncan Hanna from Cornwall had a similar show in Amsterdam. They found Tom's work on the Internet. Tom is a lovely guy, very thoughtful, but just one of those painters who just paints. He just paints and paints and paints. And if you're out to lunch with him, he'll just sit there and he'll paint while you're having lunch with him.
The photo of him is outstanding.
Yeah, he's like a Ralph Lauren model. He's very handsome, and his work is beautiful. And you can go online and see it.
Oh my God.
We
I
have
just
John
love your
Hoffman.
description of how he came upon the crushed walnuts as a part of his media. Don't miss that.
It's very funny, and Deb Alexander is a wonderful writer, and she really captured Tom in this article. John Hoffman, who's from Dutchess County, a lovely guy, and has made many documentary films and series that you've seen, has a new film out called The Antidote, which is love and kindness, and it's showing through the movie house so you can support the movie house. And there's a talk coming up with John Hoffman and Jennifer Dowley, formerly head of Berkshire Taconic Community Foundation, and we'll have information on that in next week's Compass. A lot of stuff going on at the Hancock Shaker Village, which is maybe a little bit far away, but at this time of year, an hour-and-a-half drive, you see beautiful views wherever you go as you're driving up there. And they've got a talk on Shaker colors, which are so distinctive. But they've also got an open house day coming up this weekend. They've got Halloween activities on the 31st for both ages. A talk from the Sherman. One of the nice things about Zoom, we've just talked about the downsides. One of the nice sides is a lot of organizations and places that you wouldn't normally visit because they're just a little too far away are doing really cool stuff, and you can see it on Zoom without leaving your house. So this conifer garden, it's just so extraordinary, and you can go online and see pictures of it. But there'll be a talk about it tonight at 7 o'clock. It's called Peter's Opus, and information on how to log in the article. American Beauty, one of the all-time great Grateful Dead albums, and, of course, anything that was recorded in a studio is looked down upon a little bit. It's not a bootleg, but American Beauty, 50 years old, and how does that make us feel ancient? But the Bardavon is doing a tribute to that, and interesting tributes coming up.
That's one of the albums that I purchased in my life. There's three albums that I wore out many times.
Yeah.
American Beauty was one. Jefferson Starship's Blows Against the Empire was another one. And Jethro Tull's had Aqualung was another one, and the Who's Next. But American Beauty really is a classic record.
And there's stuff on that record that you don't really hear much, like Phil Lesh singing, which is a big deal. We have in Mosaic, which is continuing to do interesting stuff. They're going to have a music and record album day on October 24th this weekend. So there's going to be records for sale, 33 RPM vinyl, and there's going to be a dance party in the afternoon. And then, of course, it's the spooky season, and Robert Oakes will be talking about his book, Ghosts of the Berkshire Museums. Again, in a museum you might not normally visit, the Bidwell House Museum. It's online. You can see it without leaving your house.
I have to laugh when you say there'll be 33 LPs. When I started in radio, I was playing 78s.
Wow.
I wonder if people even know from 78s and 45s.
Big 78, and they weren't called albums. They were called transcriptions.
Right.
That's how old I'm getting.
But he sounded great.
Unbelievable. It's kind of like you guys with the printing press. You know what I mean?
Oh, gosh, the lithograph. Yeah.
Unbelievable. Well, that is, once again, now, Janet, let's go over next week's edition for people that are going to write letters so they don't complain.
We take all letters next week. We don't have any limitations except less than 500 words, and we only have so much space, so we do the very best we can, but we give top priority to those who disagree with our endorsements. But we try to get all the letters in that we receive every single week, and most weeks we succeed.
Well, once again, I think for having limited space, I think that, and I think the charge against you about the headlines was wrong. Everybody got the same type of font, so it's just one of those things. So we'll see a lot of letters again next week, obviously.
Let's hope. That's okay. We welcome your opinions.
All right. So you'll find, of course, the Lakeville Journal and Millerton News at tricornernews.com on newsstands and home delivery. Guys, we'll speak to you next week.
Thank you so much.
That is This Week in the Lakeville Journal, tricornernews.com on the web.